Good morning, everybody. Hope you all are well and going to study well. No? As we have completed civics portion, isn't it? Most part of civics we have completed. Shuyans, Tiwari. Okay. So most of the portion of civics we have completed. Now three chapters were remaining that we will complete in the online session. Okay. In second term examination, up to 5, 6, 7 and 8 came, no? Sorry, 5, 6, 7 and 8 came. In your third term examinations, three chapters are going to come from history, 9 and that is 9, 10 and 11. Three chapters are going to come in your second term, that is 9, 10 and 11 from history, and one chapter, no? One chapter is going to come from where? From civics, okay? That is the UN agencies. That UN agencies we have completed. Now let us start with chapter 9, struggle for freedom. Okay, this chapter is mostly related to your previous chapter, chapter 8. As I told you that when we were studying this this chapter 8, I told that brief deeply we will study in the next chapter, this rise of Indian nationalism. Okay, now this chapter is struggle for freedom. Struggle for freedom. We are going to start it from now onward. Struggle for freedom. Okay. You all just open page number 104, chapter 9. Okay. Okay. So in this chapter, you will study about the rise of radicals. Rise of radicals, and after that second one will be which one? Formation for the Muslim League. Formation for the Muslim League, and after that third topic will be which one? Jallianwala Bagh incident. And after that last one will be non-cooperation movement. Non-cooperation movement. Okay. So in the very first, here in the introduction for rise rise of radicals rise of radicals. The last decade of the 19th century was fully full of misery for Indians. Okay, the last movement of the 19th century was full of misery of Indians. Okay, large part of the country were ravaged by famine and millions of people died. Okay, Indian leaders blamed Indian leaders blamed the policies of the government for the poverty and death of the people. Okay, and vehemently means forcefulness of expression or intensity. Okay, criticized it. All the Indian leaders were criticizing to the different policies of the Britishers, and they were blaming to the Britishers only for this India's situation. Understood? Okay. The government continued its repressive measures and a new phase began in the history of the nationalist movement from 1905. This phase was to involve more Indians. Okay, this phase was to involve more Indians and transform the freedom movement to a mass movement. Leaders like Lala Lajpat Rai, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and Bipin Chandra Pal, popularly known as Lal Bal Pal. As I told you in the classroom only, in the classroom also, they all were known as Lal Bal Pal, means Lala Lajpat Rai, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and Bipin Chandra Pal insisted that the people would have to rely on their own strength rather than on the good intentions of the British government. The aim of the Indian people should be the attainment of Swaraj. The aim of the Indian people should be getting Purna Swaraj. Should be getting Purna Swaraj. New methods of political agitation. Understanding, no? Political agitation means in the classroom I told political vacuum. Creating a political vacuum. Okay. So a new method of political agitation like strikes, boycott. Okay. Strikes, boycott of foreign goods and mass demonstrations to spread awakening among the people and to achieve political reform were introduced. These trends gradually became more and more popular and soon began to dominate the nationalist movement and the Congress. Okay. Here, as mostly you all are knowing that the history of Indian national movement, okay, the history of Indian national movement led by the Congress, the history of Indian national movement which was led by whom? Which was led by the Indian National Congress, INC, that is divided broadly into three phases. Understanding the history of Indian National Congress, Indian National Movement led by the Congress, it was divided into the three phases, three groups. Which one? First one is early nationalist phase. First one is early nationalist phase, and first one is early nationalist phase, and second one is assertive nationalist phase, and the third one is Gandhian phase. Okay, this movement, uh, this history of the Indian national movement led by Congress was divided into two parts. Understanding? It was divided into, sorry, not two, three parts. First one, early nationalist phase. Second one, assertive nationalist phase. And third one, Gandhian phase. Understood? So, during during its initial years, the Congress was led by the nationalist leaders. Okay, during its initial years, the Congress was led by the nationalist leaders who were described by later historians as early nationalists. The member of the Congress during the early nationalist phase belonged mainly to the educated middle class intellectual community, lawyers, teachers, journalists, officials, professionals, and industrialists, and others. The important leaders during this period were, as I told you, which one? Lala Rajpat Rai, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, okay, and after that, Bipin Chandra Pal. The early nationalist movement, the early nationalist movement believed that British rule had conferred several benefits on India. Okay, they felt that at that stage of history, it was in their own interest to remain under the British, since they were not yet ready to govern themselves. The early nationalists were convinced that the British could be persuaded to introduce necessary reforms, and the government could be transferred to suit the interest of the Indian subjects. Okay. After that, a important prominent leader among the extremists was Bal Gangadhar Tilak. The important leader among the extremists was Bal Gangadhar Tilak. He believed that freedom from foreign rule could remove all social evils and declare Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. Okay? In Hindi, Swaraj हमारा जन्म सिद्ध अधिकार है. Understood? Swaraj is my birthright and Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. He mobilized, means he encouraged the masses, a group of people, by organizing Hindu festival where all people gathered in large numbers. It served as a meeting ground for people of all castes and communities. His papers, Kesari and the Maratha, became mouthpieces. Okay, his newspaper Kesari and Maratha became very popular among the new leaders, and other prominent extremist leaders were Bipin Chandra Pal and Lala Lajpat Rai. Lala Lajpat Rai was active in North India and particularly Punjab. Bipin Chandra Pal actively participated against the Arms Act and the partition of Bengal. Okay. Now, world event. As people became more and more disillusioned with the British government, as people became more and more unsatisfied with the foreign rule, with the British government. The influence of the extremists, understood? The influence of the extremist leaders began to increase. The influence of the extremist leaders began to increase, and certain events outside India also gave rise to the anti-British upsurge and inspired partitionism. Partitionism. The the uprisings in Ireland. Okay, the uprising in Ireland in 1916 and the victory of Japan over Russia in 904 to 5th generated confidence among the educated Indians in their struggle against the British rule. This was the world events. Means this incident happened across the world. Across the world. Okay. Now, partition of Bengal. Partition of Bengal. The one single event that changed the aims and the method of the nationalist movement was the partition of Bengal in 905. Bengal was then the largest province. That time, Bengal was the largest province, means state of British India. Lord Curzon became the victory of India on 30th December and 30th December 1898. Government, the anti-British movement was getting stronger and more organized, with INC emerging as a strong force. In order to weaken the position of the Congress, he adopted the divide and rule policy. Understood? They were using the policy which was known as the divide and rule. In July 905, Lord Curzon published the proposal to divide Bengal province into two parts. East Bengal, now Bangladesh, okay, and West Bengal, then consisting of present-day West Bengal, Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha, and Bangladesh. The people of Bengal reacted strongly against the partition. Both the moderate and the radical launched movements to end to the partition. Hundreds of meetings were held all over Bengal in protest against this scheme. In spite of these protests over Bengal in protest against the scheme, in spite of these protests, Assam came into existence with Dhaka as its capital. Okay, and protest meetings were held. Protest meetings were held throughout the country, and a massive demonstration. Okay, and a massive demonstration was held at the Calcutta, where? At the Calcutta Town Hall. Okay. The British partitioned Bengal in 905 in pursuance of their policy. They were using which policy? Divide and rule. They were using the policy divide and rule. Okay. And the assertiveness nationalists adopted the method of boycott, Swadeshi, and national education to achieve the goal of Swaraj. The people were asked to boycott all British goods. Understood? The people were asked to boycott all British goods. Okay. And use only Indian or Swadeshi things. Swadeshi goods. The assertive nationalists also saw through the evil designs of the British in dividing Bengal on communal lines also. Okay. This was done to separate the Hindus from the Muslim. Understanding? And destroy what? Destroy the unity between them. Between whom? Between Hindus and Muslims. Okay. The British policy of divide and rule had created a gap. Understanding? The British policy of divide and rule created a gap between the Hindu and the Muslim communities. Okay. So now that's all for today's live session. Rest things we will discuss on tomorrow. Okay. Meanwhile, you just read all the topics of this chapter and I will try to send your PDF. Okay. Thank you.